But right now, I want to hear, Hannah, about hot antitrust summer.
Oh God. Have you ever heard a more cringy like talking point in your life? Because I think this takes the cake for me. I mean, hot girl summer, yes. Hot boy summer, yes. Live your best life, get the crop tops out, let's see the tans. I'm into it. Hot antitrust summer, though, is what Amy Klobuchar intends to have this summer, and I just, oh God. She literally, this woman, I don't know how she got to be so prominent in the Democratic Party, because she is just one big walking Karen cringe to me. Like, I can't with her.
She
I
even has the
can't.
hair. She has the
She
Karen
even
hair.
has the Karen hair. Like, what is going on over there? She, like, abuses her staff. Like, I don't, it's a hot mess is what it is. But, yeah, so she sends out this awful email that I guess Brad got, and he
I
forwarded it to me,
sent
and
it
I,
to you.
yeah. Oh my God, it was atrocious. And basically, she has declared it hot antitrust summer. If you're new to this topic, Brad and I have covered this a good bit on the podcast because we hate this. But it's time to bring it back up. It's been a little bit, but to catch you up, Amy Klobuchar has decided that antitrust is her pet project, and she's trying to ride this issue all the way to the White House. I feel confident just from observing and having been around, for a couple years now. I think they got her to drop out of the last primary cycle so that Biden could be the nominee by promising her this issue and letting it be like her thing, because it's just a weird, kind of pet issue to have, but they're all running with it on the left and like kind of like, okay, go girl. And it's very odd. So Amy Klobuchar basically likes to say that she's a capitalist. She's one of those Democrats that's like, I'm a capitalist, while pushing totally anti-capitalist stuff, right? Like, she is not a capitalist. So antitrust falls in that section. And if you want a huge deep dive, I've done a whole comprehensive episode of Based on this topic you can go back and listen to. But essentially what they try to say with antitrust is it's this legislation that quote, quote, protects competition, right? It's supposed to be this big capitalism cheerleader, and they essentially say they use it to come in and break up monopolies, and that monopolies are anti-capitalistic and that they hurt competition and that you can't have that in a capitalist society. And that's what they've been trying to say for decades. But that's not really accurate, because in a true free market capitalist system, you don't have monopolies. Even in our crony capitalist weird system we have going on, you still don't really have monopolies. It's a very unnatural thing to occur.
You don't
Competition,
laugh.
they don't last. If you do have them, they're usually propped up by government and subsidies and special regulations. When you do see them, they're not naturally occurring, and they don't last even when you do find them. And it's just this kind of ridiculous notion that we're overrun by monopolies in this country. The vast majority of businesses are still small businesses. Most people work for a small to medium-sized business. And while you do have some, large corporations, again, they have to really remain competitive in order to keep up with the ebbs and flows of the times. And within a decade or so, you'll typically see people who were at the top in short order not be at the top of their game anymore. You're already seeing that right now with Facebook, right? Facebook was the top guy, the behemoth for the longest time. Nobody could compete with Facebook, and now all of a sudden Facebook is like where all the boomers hang out, and it's kind of cringe and weird over there. It feels like, I don't know, it feels like everybody's left the building. Everybody's on TikTok and they're on Instagram and they're doing videos now, and it's just, these things naturally change over time. But Amy Klobuchar is tapping into a very populist sentiment on both the left and right, and that's why she's made this her wedge issue. She knows that the left is mad at big tech because they feel that they don't censor people enough, right? They let people say that cloth masks don't work, and they let people say that Donald Trump stole the election, and we need to make sure that nobody ever says anything that disagrees with our narrative, okay? And that's kind of where they're at. They genuinely believe that they have every right to come in and quote, quote, go after disinformation, and that's based on their narrative and their set of facts, and they feel entitled to do that, and they're mad at big tech for not doing that more stringently. And then on the right, you have people who are very aggrieved with big tech, who feel that they are censored, that they are kicked off more frequently, that their ideas are tampered, that the algorithms don't promote them. And so there's issues on both the left and right with their sentiments about this. They're both right and wrong, right? Like, do conservatives get censored more on the right and on social media platforms? Yes, but also they're the top viewed pages on these platforms as well. And many conservatives, including us, have built prominent platforms through these companies and are able to reach millions of people every day with our views. So on the left, is there disinformation? Yeah, sure. There's a bunch of QAnon people running around and they're batty and that's crazy. But also they've also tried to label things as disinformation that were absolutely factual, like many of the things around COVID. And they've also tried to push narratives that were fake on the left as well, like Russia stealing the election in 2016. So both sides are problematic, but you have some people in government who are essentially just big government hacks who always want to find ways to expand their power over the market and who will always use these kinds of sentiments out in the culture. This is why populism is kind of dangerous, right? It's not principled, it's not really based in anything, it's just emotional and based on whims, and that will always be taken advantage of by people who ultimately just want to increase their power. And so to do that, they're using antitrust, and they've got a number of bills floating around, most of which Klobuchar is sponsoring or spearheading, but a lot of them are bipartisan. You see Republicans like Josh Hawley and Tom Cotton who are on them, and all of these bills essentially give the government a lot more power over the market. And they say that they're doing that just to go after big tech, but the way that they're structured is in such a way that ultimately they could easily be expanded and used to go after many industries, many kinds of companies. The threshold's very arbitrary. And so it's corrupt. It's something that would actually hurt consumers and reduce the kinds of services we could have. It would actually hurt innovation because it would make people less likely to start new companies in this sector if they're up against these kinds of regulations. And they ultimately, in most of the bills, give this regulatory power to the Department of Justice and the FTC, which are just like looking real rough out here these days. So that's what's going on. Amy Klobuchar is trying to push it. And I think that anybody who's on these bills should never get to say they're a capitalist again.
Yeah, and we have some Republicans who are on board with this. So Amy Klobuchar has one bill that you've written about, and I'll actually link to this in the show notes, but essentially it would make it illegal in most cases for companies to promote their own products, right? Tech companies specifically, which literally the grocery store does this every time you walk in. They put their brand prominently displayed. But what that means is like Amazon Basics would be illegal. When you search on Amazon for a charger and their cheap version comes up first, that you then get delivered faster and is a super low price, might not always be the highest quality, but it's right there for you and you buy it, illegal. Amazon Prime, illegal. Like Disney promoting Hulu within its other platforms, illegal. All these kinds of things where it's like actually it would make it illegal for tech companies to give away their stuff to consumers. If you have, like, say, for example, you're already a subscriber of one network and they're starting a new platform and they want to offer you a free thing because you already subscribe to their other platform, illegal. And it's like consumers lose here. And this is something you've written about, but antitrust used to be done, has been done for decades now, with the idea of consumer protection, the consumer's best interest. If there is the consumer being hurt by this, if not, don't do antitrust. And in almost all these cases, the consumer's not being hurt. They're trying to move the standard. So it's the government's subjective idea of, are they competitive enough, these markets? Is this, should we rearrange this market and meddle? And even if the consumer is worse off. Yeah, so we expect Democrats to be pushing this. Joe Biden supports it, Amy Klobuchar supports it, but Republicans, y'all are supposed to be better than this. And some are, but some aren't. There's Republicans signed on to that antitrust legislation we just talked about, the American Choice and Innovation Act. They always give them these like nice sounding names, but sure, Jan. But our guy, Rand Paul, he just stuck his neck out here and said, I am not on board with this. I'm not going along with big government Republicans who want the government to come in and break up or manage the tech industry, even though he's been a victim himself of big tech bias and censorship. Right, Hannah?
That's right. I mean, per usual, the GOAT, Rand Paul, is just striking the perfectly right balance, right? He's been criticizing big tech. He's been taking actions to work against big tech. He's been working to actually even build up his own infrastructure that would provide better platforms for conservatives and libertarians. Like, he just walks the line every day, all the time, and God, you love to see it because it's so rare. But he's absolutely right on this, right? You can be mad at big tech, you can criticize them, you can take all these actions that he's done, and still recognize the very obvious basic component that no matter how bad big tech is, big government is worse. And it's going to be so much worse if you let them start running these things. Like, are you joking? Do you know nothing about government? It makes absolutely no sense that anybody, especially anybody who believes in actual conservative values and capitalism, would ever seek to give the government the authority to come in and run these platforms. It's in one breath. They will be like, the government was working with big tech to censor conservatives and try to work with them on the disinformation board. And then you want to give the government more power to come in and work with big tech? What? It makes no sense. It just to me says you care about your own political aspirations. You're playing the American people to get ahead. You're trying to make it look like you actually care about them and are standing up for them, but you're doing no such thing. You're just entrenching your own power. And again, these are people that just think there's no problem with power as long as they're the ones wielding it. And it's just so tired. It's so trite and old and tired. Get a new line. Let's see something else. I'm over it. And I just love to see Rand coming out swinging for free market capitalism. It gets me hyped, to be totally honest.
Yeah, I love it because, look, I'm a big critic of big tech as well. I know that they're biased. I mean, I've looked at the data and seen that 95+% of donations from people at these big tech companies, they go to Democrats. These are liberal people running these companies. And whether there's intentional conspiracy or not, probably not, but subconsciously, when you have groupthink, you have people all of one persuasion running an organization or a company, there's going to be bias in your decisions, censorship-wise, algorithmic-wise, and I've been critical of that, as has Rand Paul. YouTube censored him for saying that cloth masks don't work, which, guess what, a few months later, the CDC basically admitted the same thing. And yet he's still out here taking this principled stand because I don't like woke liberals running these big tech platforms. I criticize their decisions, but do you think the government would be better? The average federal bureaucrat has the politics of Elizabeth Warren. Do you want her or someone just like her deciding what's true and what's false, what's hate speech, what's allowable information? How has that worked out in the COVID era? So at least with the market, they've got a financial interest to not kick conservatives off completely, not censor us completely. We can always go somewhere else, like Rumble. But the government, once they come in and take over all of it, we're going to be out of luck, and this is really going to backfire. And that's what Rand explains in this op-ed he wrote for FoxNews.com. He's taking it right to the audience that needs to hear it. He writes, "No one is angrier at YouTube than I am. I was appalled that YouTube rejected the principle of free speech and embraced the Orwellian tactic of disappearing messages that did not adhere to the official party line. In response, I simply used my power as a consumer to post my videos to YouTube's free speech supporting competitor, Rumble.com. He continues, "While many of my colleagues share my anger with big tech companies, they do not share my free market principles. Instead, the bipartisan zeal for vengeance inspired an antitrust crusade against Amazon, Facebook, Google, and Twitter. But these proposals to ostensibly cut the tech giants down to size would, instead, perpetuate the dominant position of these companies and deprive consumers of the technological innovation that only free market competition can provide." Chef's kiss. You love to see it.
I'm going to say it, and I love Rand Paul's wife, so I hope everybody knows I mean this platonically, but hot. Hot. So hot. Love it.
Kelly's going to fight you.
I know. I love Kelly Paul so much. She is equally based as her husband, and I would never disrespect that unity in any way, but I theoretically, hot. Like, so hot. We love to see it. It's great. I mean, it's sad that we don't have more leadership like this, right? People who are willing to stick their necks out, because it is sticking your neck out. This is an unpopular position right now on the right, unfortunately. You've got a lot of people that are being scammed by this, that are falling prey to it, that are being told by nationalists and populists that this is what they should be doing, that this is how they're going to stand up for them. And to come out and say this is not necessarily the popular thing, but he's always willing to do that when it counts. And I really appreciate it. And this is why it's indicative of how few people we have in our political system who are actually here for principled reasons. The vast majority of people, even in our kind of work, will say and do anything to get a click, to get popularity, to get views, to get money, whatever it is, and are always willing to go where their audience takes them. You know, they're always willing to say whatever is popular at the moment, and it's just so rare to see true leadership and true principles. It's refreshing. More of this, please, dear God, in our system.